Hey guys, don't forget the 2023 Street Cop Training Conference, Nashville, Tennessee, April 23rd through the 28th. You do not want to miss this. So far, guest speakers, Rob O'Neill, the Navy SEAL that was responsible for killing Osama bin Laden, Kyle Carpenter, U.S. Marine, Medal of Honor recipient, jumping on an IED to protect his platoon. Fox News host Tommy Lahren returns for 2023. Sheriff Wayne Ivey, Sheriff Mark Lamb, Sheriff David Clark, and more to come. You don't want to miss this event. We additionally have 20 of the country's top law enforcement educators giving you the best experience of your life. You will leave this event knowing more about your job and how to be proficient at the things you do, hands down, in any other event that you'll ever attend. I personally guarantee it. Don't miss out. There's a room code at streetcop.com for our room block, and room code at the Gaylord at Opry is where the event's taking place. Don't miss out on a discounted rate. The rate is from Sunday to Thursday. Put that in and find yourselves at a half-price room. Split it with a friend, but make sure you get there. You don't want to miss this event. It is going to be that good. If you trust me and you trust Street Cop, trust that you will leave there feeling like you've had an experience of a lifetime.
111, 110.
You training to be a street cop?
Hi, I'm Tom Rizzo, Street Cop Training Instructor for the Ivory Tower program on leadership, wellness, and resiliency.
And I am Heather Glogolich, and I'm also a Street Cop instructor. Excited about that opportunity. And I teach the complete female cop, which I want to preface with saying I don't sit here with a big ego and think I am what everybody should be. I'm the complete female cop. I just, in my course, talk about all the things that really make up who we are as females in law enforcement and some of the unique gender-specific issues that we might deal with. So I talk about things that are more than just being a cop.
For sure. But I mean, it's so necessary, right? So, you know, what we were talking about and how we came to even know each other, I always laugh because, you know, I tell people the story. Here I am in Maryland, and I get approached by, obviously, a common acquaintance. And I say, oh, you know how I met Heather? I said, I literally see this girl limping in because she's got, you know, and I said, and I see all these people walking by. Now, one person, the common etiquette to just hold the door. And that's how we met. You know, it's just crazy. Like, so I always say, you know, common decency, right? Goes a long way.
I just had my knee replaced. Yeah. And I was like, Tom Rizzo teaches us? And obviously you know who Tom Rizzo is. And I hadn't known who you were, right? Because I followed Dennis forever. And then here comes Tom Rizzo with his words of wisdom.
Sure.
Right? The things that you want in a leader that he actually has come out of his mouth. And, you know, you wonder if what you say is all bullshit. And then you get to meet you.
Don't pull any punches.
And you realize you're the real deal, right? So yeah, he stops and he's like, oh, hey, how are you? And so I sit down in this group and I'm the only female with all men, which is typically how it always is in law enforcement, especially for me, especially in a leadership position, because there's so far and few between of them. And you walk in and you make a point to shake every single person's hand and ask them their name. And really, you just made people feel comfortable. And I was like, I just want to be him. And I was like, I love this. And then I had a set of balls and I just called you and I asked you to help me with my FTO program because I wanted to see significant and important change be made so my guys could do the best that they could.
But isn't it, I mean, so that's what makes me laugh, right? When we talk about, you know, female, we talk about any type of thing that's taboo, that's different, that's unique. It's about doing what, right? Making your impact. So if you have the opportunity to make an impact and you, by just the fact that you're a female, you're a leader, you could sit there and just try to fit a mold, fit a characteristic, fit an expectation, or you could do something with it, right? So that when your time comes, that, you know, Father Time clicks, you could say, well, I did something, right? And I always say that, right? If you take Heather at 100%, that's pretty good. You're probably pretty good at what you do, right? And I say this about any police officer you run into. But if you took Heather and you say, you know what, as a leader now, and this doesn't have to be rank, it could be anything. If you took 100 people and you made them go one click, 1% better. So you have Heather compared to 100% is pretty good. Or if you took people and they did 1% increase, but 100 of them, that's a movement.
Yeah.
So you have a leader who can make an impact, which by being 100%, which is great. I say if you can only do that, then at least that's better than not. But if you could turn around and dissect yourself and put your influence on other people, which is exactly what you're doing, which is why I couldn't be more happy. I couldn't be more supportive as to what you're doing, because you're going to get, I mean, you can get 100 overnight. That 1% now their life has changed for the better, their careers changed for the better. That's a movement. And that's why I keep telling people, and I argue that say, oh, forget it. The law enforcement's dead. The job is dead. The this is dead. That's a perspective. It's all perspective. And I say that's where we have to respect the channels and the chronicles of our history. Go ahead and say that to people, that we're coming up in the civil rights evolution.
Yeah.
Or, in those genres of policing. We could argue all day about the oversight, the reform, society. We could do that. But it's all, to me, I think it's all, matter of perspective. It's always, the next generation always says it's harder for them as it was before.
Yeah.
In a lot of regards, it is, I think now. I think the job is harder from when you and I first started. I do believe that in terms of how much they have to do. But I think somebody like you have a niche that is crucial, it's vital, it's significant. And I think, again, you have a fan in me, not just as a person that you are, but this is something that we so sorely need. And it's so long overdue. I mean, this is an expired topic, in my opinion, that we have relied upon outside influence. And now we have our own experts to do it. I couldn't be more of a fan of it. So I'm happy.
I think it's funny that you talk about perspective, because perspectives can be changed.
Yeah.
And who are the people that are going to change those perspectives? And I've talked to Dennis before about being motivated and then being disciplined. But the same thing needs to apply to your perspective.
Fact.
Right? And how you approach the day and your mindset and that growth mindset of moving forward. And yeah, we all have shitty days. I mean, listen, we're real life superheroes, but we're also the villains in a lot of people's stories, no matter what the call is, right? We're not a bunch of firemen. So again, you say that it was easier to be a police officer when we got hired. And from a female perspective, it's absolutely not.
The opposite.
It is.
Yeah.
And maybe that comes with me being on the job for 18 years and really being comfortable in who I am now, and having experience and having training, having people that support my voice in order to try and be a leader and be better for people. But when I first came on, I had no idea who I was. I didn't have self-awareness. I was trying to fit a mold and trying to fit that expectation that you talk about by fitting in.
Sure.
And really being embarrassed by who I was and what I could bring to the table, because I didn't think it was part of the narrative that they wanted me to tell. And that was really hard to transition. And I don't think I came to a point where I was comfortable being who I was until I achieved rank. And that's horrible to think that there's many people out there that will never achieve that, because at rank, you get this ability to have a formal leadership role instead of an informal leadership role. And I just think in policing, it's much easier for men to have an informal leadership role than it is females.
Yeah, well, sure, right? In an industry that's dominated by men, of course. But, where I cast blame, and I'm careful to do that because, I mean, God knows I take responsibility for probably more than I should, but I'm good with it because I think that that's what we should do. As you ascend in rank and responsibility, I think so should be a blame share. So I say shame on us, not females, not males, us in the industry for not doing this sooner, And when I say easier, when I talk about the job, I'm talking about in terms of tangibles of what you have to do, criteria procedurally, you didn't have so many things that you'd have to, a routine call now that used to take 20 minutes just by virtue of technology and mandates takes triple the time now. So I'm saying what I laugh at is we've had the innate ability to reform things like use of force, these major components, but yet ignore diversity and what it was meant to do, what it was meant to be. These are easy, common etiquettes.
Yeah.
The treatment of females isn't a new thing. This is crazy, right?
Yeah.
We should have covered this when you were raised.
100%.
I don't think that there should be special rules in policing. I think they're human rules.
Yeah.
Right? That's based on what? The common core of respect, empathy, and human decency. Imagine how many problems go away.
Yeah.
Agreed?
Absolutely. Or imagine just not assuming what someone else is living through or going through, because you never know. And I just had a really good life lesson. And here I was, and I'm not going to say who because it's not my place to tell this person's story, but this person came out and shared something that they'd been throughout their entire life and in their career. And it was somebody who I thought would never be able to relate to what I was going through. And it was somebody who I never thought really cared about anybody and really never had any trials and tribulations, because that person held it very close to the chest, right? They never talked about it. They never shared personal details. They weren't really somebody who had who you thought had close friends. And when they divulged this to us, I was like, man, shame on me for assuming that this person wouldn't understand. Like
Sure.
and at the same time, I almost wish they had been a little bit more transparent, and maybe I shouldn't, because I would have felt more comfortable going through what I was going through.
course.
So in life lesson there for me was, don't assume other people aren't going through stuff because they're not talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, still be a voice so other people don't feel alone if they are going through it.
But and again, that's where I say shame on us. And I mean, we could make this a matter of sex in terms of men, but in a male-dominated industry, right? Shame on people for ignoring. And that's why, I mean, I can't stand where we talk about resiliency and we talk about these initiatives and we talk about 21st century policing and all this good stuff. It's feel good. But, and the reason why I say it's feel good, I don't think there aren't people out there sincere about it. Lord knows I'm friends with some of them. But I'm saying, if we're going to do it where we check a box, right, and we just assign somebody to a task, it's not a task. It's, in my opinion, it's a discipline. And it's something that is a culture. It shouldn't be a position, it shouldn't be a title, it shouldn't be an assignment. I'm saying that, that's something where it's free. It doesn't cost anything to be able to just treat people, like I said, with human decency. We were talking before, off the mic, where, again, like I said, you shoot somebody, heaven forbid, and I'm not negating the severity of that, but you shoot somebody and you have hallways of experts for crisis debrief and this and that. I'm saying, where's the debrief for just a toxic work environment, right? That plagues more departments than it does fatal officer involved shootings.
Yeah.
Officers injured, right? Officers mentally injured is what keeps going up, despite accreditation, despite advanced education. So you tell me. I mean, I don't know how many more lessons we need, or how many more alarms, or how many more indicators. We talk all the time in this group about what, suspicious indicators of reasonable or articulable suspicion, how to use those as predicates for a report and further action. What about the indicators for toxicity? What about the indicators for stress, strife? I mean, and that's what, again, why I'm so glad that we're doing something about it. And I tell you, I hope that, and I know, that's why I say I hope, but you're going to inspire other people to tell their story. And that's the thing. That, to me, there's people that are good, but there's people that are game changers. So what you're doing is you're changing the game. And by being fearless of networking with other females that have gone through this adversity, leaders that are men that had the foresight to say, this is how we should be doing it. It's an intimidating thing. I don't think females appreciate, and I say that word carefully, how much, anxiety it creates. So, and what happens with anxiety? Then people act out sometimes, childish, nasty, very ignorant, because it's an anxious situation. Introducing a female into a male environment. Yeah. And I know that's taboo to talk about. Ooh, heaven forbid. But This is where we're never going to make it better unless we have the candid conversation. Yeah. Right?
Agree. And some people may not have heard the podcast that I did with Dennis that talked about what I went through. Mm-hmm. And so just to bring everybody up to speed, my first husband and I went through the police academy together and ended up getting married. And the relationship ended when he beat me up for like 4 hours and then held a gun to my head, and ended up having to go through the whole entire process of having him arrested and being a single mom and worrying about the guys I work with not trusting me because I can't handle my shit at home. Am I going to be able to handle it at work? And dealing with not having time off to go do a restraining order hearing, or, my first call back being a domestic. And there's just all these things that I went through, and I don't blame my agency. They just didn't know. They were ignorant to what I was going through. And I don't mean ignorant in a negative word. I mean, it is like I don't think they would have ever imagined that one of their employees would have had to go through that and how to deal with it. And they weren't proactive about it, which again, it's probably because they hoped it would never have to happen. Sure. And that's where our problems lie. We hope things never have to happen, so we don't deal with it until we have to deal with it.
It's not a problem until it's a problem.
We hope there's never a school shooting. So we're not going to deal with it until it actually happens, right? After going through that and really having to still work through it to these days, because there's still issues that come from my ex-husband having been able to see my son and dealing with him trying to come after me now that he's not a cop so he could screw with my career, and having to worry about being dragged into IA for something that you didn't do but he made up, and dealing with your kids having to act out and take out, all these things I wanted to do. And I wish I could have come forward and talked about it earlier. I've still never been asked to train in my agency, and I've never asked to train in my agency. And that has to do with me, but it has to do with them. I think that they're nervous to ask me because they're worried about making me feel. That's what I assume. But at the same time, the balance of that is I'm kind of nervous to do it too, right? Like I have so many new cops I work with that have no idea what
of your story.
Through. And I have some of my old, like I'm gonna talk about Dave Crowley. Was a sergeant. He came out of the detective bureau, ended up getting assigned to me, and I was his lieutenant. And him and I never had like a cohesive relationship. And he was my FTO. And I'm telling you, the best thing for my career was him coming out and being my sergeant. And I adore him on such a level that I can't even articulate. He's brilliant. He's a great cop. He's a phenomenal leader. And I've seen such growth in him as a person that is empathetic to people. And you know, it's crazy because when I went through it, we worked together. So I assumed he knew what happened. And he said to me the one time, he's like, I don't know the details and I don't want to know the details because it's going to just make me angry. And I never even took that into consideration.
Sure.
You know, and again, another eye-opening thing for me to just assume a person's acting a certain way because of how I think they feel about me or what happened. But really, I have to give grace and patience to other people and how they may feel. But, you know, I haven't, and I have been. And it's funny because yesterday, not funny, I was just telling you this, Frankie. We were on a call yesterday that had to do with a civil matter and had to do with visitation rights. And it was from out of state. So there was a little confusion on whether or not there was a restraining order attached. And we were talking and now we're off camera. It's off. The one officer is dealing. And the one officer comes up to me and he's like, hey, LT. And I was like, hey. He's like, I listened to your podcast. And I was like, oh. I was like, which one? And he's like, and because I want him to say it, he's like, I kind of had an idea, but I really had no idea. He's like, I am so sorry you went through that. And, you know, again, then I crawl into this little shell and I'm like, I don't want people to feel sorry for me.
Sure.
Because I want them to see how far I've come. You know, and that's a balance and that's me to bear.
No, okay, good.
I felt sorry for myself for a really long time.
Yep.
And I let go of that. And I realized that instead of feeling sorry for myself, I can empower myself. And that's what I've done. And my story sucks. And when I talk about it and in such detail that I talk about it sometimes, the next day I have what I call a vulnerability hangover where I really feel like I got hit by a truck and I have to process those emotions and I'll have a nightmare every once in a while because, you know, I'm re-victimizing myself every time I tell that story.
Sure.
But at the same time, I'm also taking power away from my ex-husband, which kind of builds me back up. And then when people come up to me and they thank me because they never had the words and they never felt strong enough to say out loud that it had happened to them. And it gets me to a point where I'm like, my pain has a purpose and it's worth it.
Good for you.
It's just, you know, you came to the conference we had for New Jersey women in law enforcement and you were one of the speakers. And I spoke before lunch and I sat in that room with 500 female police officers from New Jersey. How fucking badass is that, right?
Awesome.
Like, oh my God. I was like, oh my God, there's 500 female cops in this room.
And you projected it was going to be what?
Well, we originally were like, hopefully we can get 200.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck that. That room can hold 500. We're getting 500.
Good for you.
Yeah. I was like, we're doing it. And man, we worked so hard. And I think we put on such a good conference. And, you know, we were talking about how the statistic is 1 in 3. Mm-hmm. 1 in 3 women are sexually assaulted. 1 in 3 women are subject to domestic violence abuse. And here I was thinking I was not something special. I don't want to put it that way, but that I was unique in my story because I still have all this guilt that I carry around that I let this happen to me.
Yep.
And I should have known better because I had the tools, I had the knowledge, I had the experience. So here I am thinking I'm on an island, that I'm the only female cop that happened to. And not realizing that out of 500, 1/3 of that is 166. So 166 females, if going by that calculation and that statistic in that room had been victims of something. Never even realized it until I had so many either message me or come up to me and just thank me, crying, saying, I've never talked about this before. Like even just being able to deal with stuff at work where they felt weak, you know, and maybe it wasn't something in their personal lives, but it was at work where they're looked at as weak. Mm-hmm. And just being able to relate to that, man, that just one, it gave me the opportunity to have the balls to say to Dennis, like, I'm ready to do this here. It did. It really did. Because again, I'm talking to you about imposter syndrome, and I feel like, well, why should I be getting recognition for something that happened to me?
Mm-hmm.
But then I have to realize that I'm getting recognition and I'm making a difference because of how I reacted to the situation, how I reacted to what happened to me.
Mm-hmm. But how many people now in that room, or that listen to a podcast, or that meet you for coffee, now are inspired and encouraged to go tell their story?
Yeah.
Doesn't have to meet yours, doesn't have to defeat yours, but now they'll tell their story. And sometimes that's all it is. I say that all the time. A lesson learned should be a lesson shared. Good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah.
So the imposter thing, no, ridiculous. Like, and it's funny you say that, how all of a sudden you felt like, oh, wow, I thought I was alone with this. I say, and I'm very careful so I don't insult people, whenever they're telling me, I try to help whoever from, when they reach out to me, hey, I'm going through X, Y, Z, right? And I always give them a line. I was like, well, guess what? You're not special.
Yeah.
And they always just pause. They don't know what to say. I say, listen, I mean that with respect. I said, you're not unique and you're not special. And all of a sudden they stop. And I was like, you know why? There's somebody experiencing the same damn thing, that you just talked about.
Yeah.
You realize that? And you know why I say that? Because I'm glad you said it. My God, was I guilty of feeling sorry for myself. Oh, I'm the only person this ever happened to. There's nobody that's had it as bad as me. I mean, my goodness, right? I'm such a victim. And here we go. Yeah. So that's why I say that to folks. You're not special. You're not unique. Because I know for me what happened when I believed that my circumstances were such and of such gravity that no one could possibly fix me, because, poor Tom. Nobody's ever dealt with this. Yeah. It's very easy to fall into that trap.
It is.
Right? Yeah. So it's like for you, I'm hoping that when people see your vulnerability of telling that story, that you say, you enter an arena. I don't care what the topic is. You could be instructing on how to paint a wall. People are going to look at you. Why'd she go 2 strokes up? So that's going to happen. So there's a certain vulnerability that comes along with this. And you know what? I embrace it, because I say, hey, if there's 9 people out of 10 that want to throw tomatoes at me, if there's one that instead takes a bite of the apple, then we're good. I don't care if you took everything I said and said, that is exactly what I'm not going to do. What did I do? I impacted you. So this vulnerability, see, you're doing the epitome of my opinion what a leader is. It's not because you're a lieutenant. F all that. Patches, ranks, pins, and all that good jive. It doesn't do anything for me. Yeah. I've met people that have more ribbons they could wrap around their head 3 times. It's the person, and it's their I've always said indigenous leaders are the ones that I'm attracted to, that they don't have the title, but my goodness, man, when they get up and move, you watch people, they all follow, right?
Yeah.
There's got to be something to that.
It's taken a very long time, almost all of my career, to get to a point where now I believe, at a position in my agency where I have such an incredible team of open-minded, forward-thinking people that I feel like I can be the leader that I was meant to be.
Fact.
Right? Like, you can't be a leader if you don't have people that are willing to follow.
Yes.
At the same time, it can be in you.
Yes.
You just have to be in the right arena, I guess is.
Yeah.
And you have to connect with people so they understand that you have their interest genuinely at heart when you're stepping forward with them. Yeah,
but I think also too, and I think you're experiencing now, you just alluded to it, right? So you've never even been asked to teach on this subject, right?
Yeah.
So to my thing, I think what I see such a travesty in our industry, come on, personal insecurity does what? That's the venom. That's the cancer that we need to rid ourselves of. And we could talk about it. It sounds just like a talking point, but where I'm at on that. So I think that we end up falsely believing, that the arena, the intimate arena that we're a part of, is the only arena that's out there.
Yeah.
Right?
Agreed.
So all it takes is one trip, one trial, one tribulation in your local arena to get you to prove or disprove what you think your whole worth is. This platform is proof in the pudding on that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's things that you might aspire to get and not get. Hello. So what now? Do you take that and believe that you're a failure and that's it, and you wait and you raised a white flag, or you just know, okay, maybe I take Avenue C and there's still people I could reach, which is why I still think there are even more people out there that could tell their stories. If it's at the squad level and that's it, if it's among their social networks and that's it, that's still making an impact.
Yeah, if you constantly believe also that you need someone else to help you get up, then you're not going to have the strength to stay standing.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think we rely on so many other people to not just motivate us, but to keep us disciplined or to help us find the light or help us find the rainbows that so many people don't realize that they have the power to do it for themselves.
Well, they don't, but why would they though, right? When you don't have people, and that's why, not to belabor the point, but I say like your circles, right? If you're not inspired, what we say all the time, if you're not inspired by the people in your circle, you don't have a circle, you have a cage.
100%.
So I'm sure with you, and you're experiencing this probably now because you're getting out there, you're doing your thing. You probably have equal amount or greater to that aren't exactly, oh, what are you doing? What do you think you're you get where you look and say, man, if you win the lottery, right? You know those people, they would turn around and say, yeah, but you got to pay taxes.
Right. Yeah.
How about like, oh my God, couldn't have happened to a better person, and genuinely mean it? But that's rare, right? Because people don't want to do that. So I think that's why people are so often expecting or, relying on other people. Excuse me. I think that's why. You know what I mean? Like that's why, because we work in such a place in society and culture in modern day that is always incumbent upon somebody else. Because why? When we want to blame, right? Or we want to thank. So we never want to just look at ourselves and say, this is pretty cool, because we're scared to death to do that.
And here you talk about how I haven't been asked to teach this, right?
Yeah.
And that's a tool, but let's look at it from a street cop perspective. I don't have one man signed up for any of my class, right? They're either really scared to be around all that estrogen, or they think that nothing in the class is going to be applicable for them.
All right. Well, so hold on. Let me defend my species here. So, I was never as intimidated. I mean, for that conference, right? Because but you see, this is what I mean. But so the same way you're the anomaly for the female, right?
Yeah.
I like to believe I'm one of the anomalies as the male, that I'm not scared to have the conversation. I'm not scared to talk any race, creed, color, religion, sexual thing, whatever it is that you want to have. I feel like that's the crux of real conversation and growth. Okay. So with that said, I mean, you feel the heat of those female eyes, right? And you're like, man, I better pass this muster. I mean, right? Because it's so the same thing, right? Who do we have to blame but ourselves of what? You see, this is what stinks. And I always try to give this respect to females in this game. There is, whether men want to admit this or not, there is literally like a halo of liability above a female's head that you see and say, my goodness. Why? Because we're brainwashed.
Yeah.
So you see, liability alarm, where you say you're not even getting that chance. You're either so that you're going to see either overcompensation.
Yes.
Where you didn't even ask this female, does she want, does she not want, does she feel, does she not feel?
Yeah.
Treat each other. Let's have the candid conversation. You can't I cannot stand when people say, oh, we're all the same. That's the biggest bunch of BS in the world.
Yeah.
Let's talk about our cultural differences. Let's talk about our gender differences. I mean, that to me, I think is so ignorant. I think that's more ignorant than people that are stereotypical, racist, prejudiced. Like, I'd rather a realist than I would somebody who's putting up the facade. No, we're all the same. Really? I'm going to have to say no.
Yeah.
And I think it's so much better if we just had the conversation and then embrace what diversity was supposed to be about. And we paint in all different colors and all different methods. And that's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like going in front of females. My God, it's intimidating.
I love that.
But see,
that was a secret win. Thanks,
yeah.
pal.
And I say, and that's why I told you to be unapologetic. I mean, I think you're a fool to not sign up for the class. If you're like, it's a fool, right?
You.
Because why wouldn't you? There is nothing better to education than different dialects of education. Yeah. How do you know? You know how many people out there that they have no idea about their potential because they've never tapped the gas pedal. What do we talk about all the time with street cop, right? When you hear people say, oh, play it safe, get a warrant. You know what that means? They don't know case law.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
Right.
This is the same thing. That's not my thing. How do you know it's not your thing? How do you know? How do you know?
Right.
I mean, I don't, so unless we have these conversations, I had a beautiful, beautiful debate. I mean, damn near screaming with a BLM group. And some of my colleagues said, are you crazy? Why are you talking? I was like, because, man, that's baptism by fire.
Yeah.
Let's learn from each other. How? Oh, I know. You'd rather just instead pound your chest that you know the right answers. That's crazy. Yeah. And what do you have with females? You have men making these decisions. Oh, I know what they need. Do you?
Right.
Have you spoken to them? I mean, well, yeah. Right? It's so crazy.
So it's amazing. So New Jersey Women in Law Enforcement, I'm the vice president of it. We just worked with the Attorney General's office, and the New Jersey Chiefs of Police Association was part of it too, where I think there's only like 5 in the state, maybe females, at least that were at the meeting that I was at. But how great is it that now, and I can't believe that this day and age, all agencies don't have a pregnancy and maternity policy, but now they have a directive to put it in there. But as we're going through it and we're talking to them, there were certain things that they were alluding to. And I was like fitness for duty to return back. And I was like, we're like, no, we don't like that term because, you know, at the Attorney General's office, they don't realize that as cops, when you say fitness for duty, like there's a pucker factor. 100%. It's really just medical clearance because it's a medical condition. It's not a disability. And the medical condition goes away once you have the baby.
Yep.
And, you know, they didn't know that we don't have extra bereavement time for the loss of a child. And that if you are at like 8 months or 7 months and have a spontaneous miscarriage or a stillborn, that doesn't even count as having a child. So you're not necessarily entitled to that. I mean, you can still take the time, sick time to recover, but think about coming in as a human, as a leader and saying, I have no idea what you're going through because I'm a man. I can't even carry a baby in my body, but I know how I would want my wife and my daughter to be treated. And I'm going to extend that to you. And anybody in this agency who tries to give me shit about how it's not equal, they have nothing to stand on because they aren't going through what you're going through. And it was so incredible for this to come out. And what a forward movement, because it's a directive for agencies that don't even have females, right? They have to put it in place. And for me, that's substantial because we talk so much about recruitment. Let's lower the physical standards. Hell no, don't do that. That makes us unequal immediately.
From jump,
you are putting me at a disadvantage to feel like I belong here because you're not making me rise to the same standards. But now let's stop focusing so much on recruitment. But let's start talking about retention. 30 years is a long fucking time to be a cop where like you're seeing trauma and you're dealing with egos and all the stuff that you have to go through and disappointment and not feeling like you have equity and there being expectancy issues and socialization, right? When you're dealing with all that for 30 years and balancing what it's like to be either maybe a mom or that guilt or being a good spouse or having a jealous husband that doesn't like that you're with the guys all the time, right? There's all these layers. And then to have an agency really focus on something that's going to help women want to stay.
Well, but here,
incredible.
But here you go again, though, right? And you're doing exactly that. And this isn't I want to say this with humility. This is where I say the difference of training and development comes into play. That's why I call what I say all the time in my course. I could call my course Supervision 101. That's what we're used to in our gig, right? Learn how to do evaluations, learn how to discipline, learn, Officer A isn't writing enough tickets as Officer B. Here we go again, right? Again, that doesn't equip you to deal with the everyday.
Right.
So as a female, you would want to hope that you were assimilated and prepared to deal with most. We can't prepare you for everything because we don't work in that type of industry. We don't guarantee you a 9 to 5, you make X amount of widgets a day on an assembly line.
Yeah.
So we can't prepare you for everything, right? But we could do our damnedest. We could do our damnedest to make sure that you have the tools and the ability to develop yourself, to provide yourself with the foundation of what we have already experienced. See, I laugh because we're supposed to honor our traditions, right? And we do. You see it, right? Everybody's got some type of league in your department, right? What do you have? You have the pictures of all the past. And so we always do that, right? But then we act like we don't have answers in our past. So shame on us if we don't learn from our past. Then what? The past wasn't worth any damn thing.
Yeah.
So you see my point? So
I do.
If you have the ability of, it's not about, and this is where I say too, embrace the hell out of hypocrisy. See, we're scared to death of hypocrisy. For me, I embrace it. So I'm going to say to Heather, hey, listen, don't do that. And you're going to say to me, yeah, but Tom, you did that. I mean, look, there's even, an email that says that you did just what you told me not to do. That's being a hypocrite. And I'm going to say, you're damn right it is. You know why? Maybe I went through it and experienced it, but now I want to help you to make sure you don't.
Right.
I mean, we act like the answers aren't there. A pregnancy policy? Explain to me how we don't have that. Go ahead. I dare you.
I don't know, because again, I had this conversation the other day. So you walk into our agency and the guys, predominantly, it's been 40 plus man department forever.
Yep.
Their locker room is huge.
Yep.
We have 6 lockers in the female locker room and they're smaller and they're not as deep, right? So we each have 2 to fit all our shit in. We have to. Our class A, we're supposed to have 2 uniforms at all time. All our shit goes in these 2 lockers. Well, we just hired our 4th female. So do the math. We need 2 more lockers. And the funny part is I said, okay, we're fixing the problem now, but what's the plan for the future and why aren't we talking about it? Because do you really expect to only have 4 females? And my chief, jokingly, but funny enough, I love that he said this. He's like, no, I'd rather move all the females into the larger locker room and have 44 females and have 6 men. And I was like, thank you. I really love that, But again, it's being able to have the conversation. And I'm telling you, I wouldn't have had the balls to say that a couple years ago. To say, why aren't we thinking about the fact that we may have equal females to males at this agency someday? I don't mean now,
right?
But someday.
But again, I'm critical though of policies versus actual practical application, right? So look at here in New Jersey alone. For those of you listening, we're talking about New Jersey standards, right? So what now? The recruitment and the diversity initiative categorizes mandates and stipulations and metrics and measurements based upon categories.
Right.
That if we were to police according to those categories, we'd be subject to civil rights violations.
100%.
So, and I say this carefully and professionally and with respect, what I'm saying is you have to decide which era you want. It's either we categorize or we be blind. You have to say which one.
Right.
You have to appreciate if a minority, and what I mean by minority, I'm talking strictly by numbers. So if a female population of a department is the minority, this is where a real conversation has to be had of, okay, money doesn't grow on trees and it doesn't come from the sky. So if we have to build another locker room, that's a real conversation we need to have. People are scared to have that conversation. And I'm saying openly in public, say to your governing body, say to your constituents, to your population, yeah, well, this is what we're doing. We're raising our budget to accommodate blah. They would want that accommodated in their workplace, right?
Yeah.
So this is my point. We don't do that, and we have the open invite to do it. Look about just policies. Hey, we want to let everybody know, just a few months ago, right? If you steal a vehicle, here's what, it's public record, so anybody can get this. So guess what? We are not allowed to pursue those vehicles. So I'm telling you now, as a chief, as a captain, as a lieutenant, as a police officer, I'm telling you now, these things are going to go up. Or what? There's a new form now to fill out for sexual assault victims. Okay, so great. I just want to let you know. So when we communicate these new policies, these new updates, these new directives, look at the only thing that gets publicized. Oh, there's a new transparency initiative to see officers who have done misconduct, officers who are corrupt, officers who have been investigated. Okay, add to that narrative that now the job that used to take 15 minutes routinely takes 55 minutes.
Yeah.
That is why I need more people. That is why I need more of this. That is why I need more of that.
It's a lot to do more with less.
But I'm saying, so I love the idea of the incorporation of diversity initiatives, females, all this good stuff. I do, but I think that we're doing ourselves an injustice as to if we pretend, okay, but where do I build it? Yeah. Sounds great. 10 females hired tomorrow. Excellent. Look at all the boxes that checks.
Yeah.
Right? Great. Look at us, how diverse we are now. And then we turn around behind the cloak and say, oh, where the hell are we going to put them?
Right.
See my point?
Yes.
That's irresponsible. And then what? Then when the females come and we smush it into a room with your 4 skinny ass lockers.
Yeah.
And then what? The first female who candidly says, let's say totally innocently, I don't know where I'm going to put all my gear. You believe it? Heather, the new hire is already griping.
Yeah.
And here we go.
Yeah.
And this cycle perpetuates itself again.
Right.
All These are easy fixes.
They are easy fixes with.
That's easy.
Yeah.
It's easy. You know, and I know it, because if we got, a new helicopter, we wouldn't get the helicopter without having a helipad, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
See my point?
Yeah, I do.
So this isn't hard.
I like that.
This isn't hard. And I keep saying this game isn't advanced physics. So it's about damn time that a female steps up, and starts to do it. And I think, like I said, I hope it spreads like a good cancer. And I do, because like I said, this is the stuff that I think that we've been yearning. It's taboo. It comes with it controversy. You said yourself, you got some darts thrown at you, and you're like, and I'm like, oh yeah, expect it. It
also comes with females have to be comfortable with the conversation as well, because we try so hard to fit in, because there's still that undertone, whether it's talked about or it's not, on whether or not women belong here. Because I think what I believe, and I shouldn't say I think, because I do believe that it's easy for someone like me who's 5'9" and like strong and has a natural police presence to feel better about showing up on scene. I can't attest to the 5'1" Or like Renee, who you just met, who I know for a fact, and I'm going to say this, and she got turned down from so many jobs in New Jersey because of how beautiful she is. That held her back.
Sure.
Right? Because there's concern of, oh my God, the guys are going to think this. Well, why do you think so little of the men that work for you? And listen, I haven't personally heard this from like a chief, but like I know for a fact that that's the mindset. Like, what is she doing wanting to be a cop? She was Miss New Jersey, right? Or she ran for Miss New Jersey. Like what? I mean, it's just this mindset of like, why can't we all just show up and be trained and realize that not everybody is going to fit the mold? And why would you want that? Because if you've everybody that fits the mold, then you're not going to be able to relate to different people within your community. You're not going to be able to talk to people. You're not going to be able to empathize. And that's why I encourage men to also come to my class, because I don't just talk about, you know, what it's like to be a female. And we don't sit around and like bitch about men and how much we hate them. If anybody loves men in this profession, it's me. Like people like you, people like Dennis, people like my squad and my sergeant, like they're just so supportive of me and wonderful. I wouldn't be where I am today without the men that have pushed me.
Security being the foundation, though.
Yeah.
So I think what you just did is answer your own question in security. We pretend, I mean, I'll tell you the answer right now, because we pretend that we don't genuinely put people, whether liked or disliked, favorites or not favorites. I posted about this recently, in group, out group, right?
Yeah.
Let's just stop pretending. There's zero wrong, because we're scared because of, again, the liability creature. We're scared of saying, like I've often said this, I think promotion, assignment, all that good stuff, I think it should be a green-red system. If you meet the basic criteria, so if it's X amount of years on, if it's certain certifications, if it's a knowledge, if it's an aptitude assessment, a physical assessment, like let's say canine, for instance, right? Obviously, you need to be a certain physical condition. I'm giving hypotheticals. Green-red, though, general green-red. And then you know what we do as administrators? What we should be able to do is say, hey, round peg, round hole. I don't care if you have long hair or short hair. And you know what I mean? I don't care if you sit or stand when you go to the bathroom.
Right.
My point is, there are certain people that are geared for certain jobs. So if you had a small framed female, or who may not be physically intimidating, like you're saying to yourself, like, and people are going to say, oh my goodness, you're going to tell me there are no skills or attributes that person has to bring to the table. I would say it's the same damn argument if you had a 6'10", 300-pound male officer who's intimidating as hell, but as soft as a bar of butter. Yeah. I'm just saying, you're going to tell me the same thing. He might have also a certain skill or attribute. This is where we turn into leadership versus management.
Hell yeah.
But we want to pretend, well, you got to score a 99.99 on some rigged, inaccurate assessment.
And make sure you check all those boxes during FTO.
It doesn't make sense.
And I'm sorry, but you have to write this many not tickets, but make these car stops and do these property checks. Well, this guy really loves traffic. Let him go take the crashes.
But I'm telling you, you know, again, to be honest, though, and that's the only way to grow, is I think people are scared to death on both sides of the aisle for this, that if I say that a female officer is perfectly suited, she shows all the skills and the necessary, you know, knowledge, skills, and abilities to, let's say, be the school officer, right away it's, oh, sure, a female, go figure, like that type of stuff. But what if I'm just saying she just has what it takes? Yeah. I know it fits a stereotype, you know, but so what?
And at the same time, women have a natural ability to be more
but people are scared to say. See, you're saying and you can get away 100%. With it. I know.
I'm not scared of I'm saying. I think people are scared because they think that it's taboo. But to say that, you know, you're somebody who's more nurturing. Like I had a guy that moved on to my squad and he really wasn't excelling on another squad. And it does sometimes have to do with personality. And he was like a beaten shelter dog at one point. And he came to me and I listen, I tell my guys I love them. Like we hug each other. So like when we see each other, like I definitely bring this mother quality to my squad. Sure. He reacts so much better to that. Yeah. He feels protected. And I don't mean in a way that's illegal. Like I'm not going to protect him from doing illegal shit. I mean like he's not going to get treated like shit by me. Not that he was getting treated by someone else, but like I allow him to make mistakes.
Bold.
And I allow him to be the cop that he wants to be. And he just like, you know, I'm really proud of who he is, who he's turning into. He's doing such a great job of owning who he is and adapting and really getting rid of all the negative that had happened to him and growing into somebody that's really even becoming a bigger asset to our agency. And I love that. That's success, right?
But what you're doing is, like I said, you're owning, I think there's that fine line, and so many instructors, I'm careful to even say that word, or so many training initiatives, groups, companies, however you want to say it. I think they try to walk the tightrope as two, and I'm very critical when I say, I'll use my own genre when we talk about leadership and supervision, right? In your classification, I think that it's that typical, oh, here's how not to get sued. This is what you do when somebody comes up and has their hair in a bun versus a ponytail.
Yeah.
And there's so much more to it. So I'm saying to you, kudos to you. My hat's off to you for being brave enough to have that conversation, knowing you're still going to deal with the ignoramus that will turn around and be like, oh, not for me, right? Clearly. Yeah. But again, to know that if one person takes it on, however, and I'm so glad you said how you said it. You're doing a bifold, and I say the same way. There's people the same. I could argue the same that won't sign up or come to my class because they say, "Well, I'm not a supervisor." Where I say, "You missed the whole point."
Yeah.
This is equipping you on how to be a leader, regardless of your rank, but also how to endure bad leadership. So it's the same way for you. You're doing it as to equip a female officer on how to be the best the complete female officer. But to also do what, right? To show other people, hey, this is the truth, right? Yeah. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off. Let's have that honest conversation.
Yeah.
That's the difference between, like I said, training and development. There's a difference. Other places, other industries that have focused on development have prospered. Look at the private industry.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're doing it. And I think that that's really what it comes down to. And I'm praying that what you're doing, people like you, again, that's the definition of encouraging, right? Is to bequeath courage on other people to step out and do and say, okay, she did it, I can do it. Rock on. That's what we should all set out to do, right? But I think that we'd be in remiss, especially you and I, for what we stand for, to not kind of shift and talk about like the balance part of it, right? Let's talk stereotypically, right? You're a wife, you're a mom, you got to balance. And God knows, man, the Tom today, what he wouldn't say to the Tom then, about loving things that can't love you back, yeah. Right? And giving so much of yourself and neglecting what the footing is that we tend to stand on when we quit.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean by quit? I say that with respect. I'm saying when the time comes that you hang up the gloves, right? What are you going back to?
Right.
And I think that you especially have such an important platform, such an important, a significant responsibility, because the mother figure, and I'm going to say this near and dear from my own heart, I don't mean to sound ignorant. When I lost my mother, I lost a piece of me I'll never get back. It's the glue of a family. I don't care if that insults anybody. I'm not casting shade onto the single dads out there. But I think the matriarch, in nature, the mom is the mom, right?
Yeah.
So I think that it's so important that if people see somebody like you mastering the balance, or at least being cognizant of how important the balance is crucial. I think it's crucial.
And I think mastering the balance certainly doesn't feel like you're ever balanced.
Yeah, right.
At all, right? You talk about a great relationship, and I talk about my relationship with my husband, and there's a lot more days lately that he's given 90% and I'm giving 10.
Yeah.
And he's my balance.
Yeah.
Right. So when I can't balance it all, he steps in to be my balance. But then there's days where he's at 15, 20, 25, and I have to fill in the other gap, the other percentage. So, when I think about balance personally, at the top of that balance has to be my mindset and my emotional and mental well-being, which along with it comes physical. And it's taken me a really long time to put myself first there, because I did feel like I had to put everybody else first. Yeah. I did feel like my husband had to come first and my kids had to come first, and that I couldn't do anything, and my health deteriorated. And it took me getting sick last October and having to get not just a knee replacement, but being diagnosed with a very, very serious form of Lyme's disease to really say, hey guys, guess what? Like, it has to be about me right now. And realizing that I needed that time for myself, and knowing that I wasn't going to be in control of it. And then I got COVID and now I'm on blood pressure medicine forever for my life because of it. And, you start to realize that you're important when someone else forces you to feel that way.
Yeah.
It's really hard to just put yourself first.
Sure.
It really is. And so for me to balance myself out, I had to become in my mind unbalanced.
Sure.
Because I put myself ahead of that. And it can be very difficult. And I was talking to Dennis about this earlier where, he says he doesn't have dad guilt because he knows he's doing what's right. And I can't help but have mom guilt because even though I know what I'm doing is right, there's still this innate feeling that I owe my family that old school gender role of a mom.
Sure.
Right?
That's my point.
To be at every PTA meeting and, to be at like jujitsu for my one while I'm trying to get to my cross country meet for the other. And like, I'm the mom, I should be doing that. And I should be there when my daughter is crying and I have to have her talk to Matt and they don't have the same relationship because he came into the picture when she was 5, not when she was born. And it's all of this imbalance and embracing it and being okay with being unbalanced that allows you to balance it out. Like if I neglect the fact or I try to push off the fact or I try to pretend that everything's perfect, that's when shit gets out of whack.
But I think that in and of itself is such a valuable lesson though, right?
Yeah.
And again, it's what are you doing, right? The kids and your loved ones and your friends, they're never going to remember that overtime shift that you took.
Right.
But you know what they'll remember? The memory that you made with them on some type of event, some type of company shared, and some type of memory made. Yeah. So I always say, the human species likes money and likes things. I'm not saying that. But that's why I think it's funny. You see the private industry has really infiltrated us as to leadership, as to what they think we need for resiliency, as to what they think we need for oversight. The private industry is a monster that we can't keep at bay. And I think that what they're really doing now is such a heavy influence on like PTO, like this personal time off thing where it's not even categorized anymore, or almost where they force us to use it or lose it. And I think why you're seeing that is because, again, somewhere, some time ago, we were convinced as to where it's not normal. It's not in any other industry that does this, that you bank all of this time and then we fall for the trick. I've always said that police to me are sometimes they act as if they're glorified prostitutes. If you just throw a cheap, thrill in front of us, we take the bait and we'll do anything for it. Right. While the real powers that be are laughing behind the scenes saying, see those suckers? Like, they didn't take any time off. And look, now they think because they get this check at the end and it was like, right. You think that you just hit the lottery. I've heard it before. Man, you see my, what I'm getting on the way out, and I was like, right. And you just had 20 something years of missing memories. And my God, I'm such a hypocrite by saying this right now. 7-year stretch without taking a sick day. That's wonderful.
I never carry sick time.
No, but I'm saying, but
mostly because I had 4 babies.
But no, but you see my point. And I'm not, and listen, I am not trying to recruit people to abuse time off.
Right.
But I'm saying, my goodness, we talk about resiliency and that's the new mantra wherever we go. My God, how many times do you come to work physically, but mentally you are back in the crisis you were just dealing with? Yeah, and you talk about safety, right?
Right.
How is that safe?
It's not. And even if you look at the mission statement and the vision statement of my organization, one of the things in there, it says that it's the duty of the agency or it's their mission to enhance the professional and personal lives of the officers. Yep. Have you ever had a chief say, hey man, what can I do to make your personal life better?
Of course.
No, right? And I'm the first person to say to you, hey, how's everything at home? Like, oh man, you're having a baby. How's that going? One of my guys just messaged me today about how his wife is going to have a C-section and they're concerned. And I've had 4. So like the fact that my guys can come to me with personal things, and don't get me wrong, I've had a ton of administration that has tried to force that to not be the case.
Sure.
They don't want me having a personal relationship with and I'm not saying that now, I'm saying in the past, things right now, and knock on wood, I'm hoping that I'm just not being naive, but things right now are so amazing at my agency.
I'm happy to hear.
I love walking into it. And whether or not I get this promotion to captain, I'm at a point where I'm so happy and so content with what I'm doing.
Almost doesn't matter.
Being a cop. It doesn't matter. It'll be awesome because it'll give me another opportunity to make change.
Sure.
I love my group so much. I literally love them. I love going to work. I love hanging out with them. We had this great drug bust on Friday night. Can't really talk too much about it, obviously, but oh man, I just love being a cop, you know? And for you to, you know, you brought up the whole, that person is going to be great as a school resource officer. It's funny because there's a lot of people that will just base that decision on gender.
Sure.
Instead of doing what you did and saying that that person holds the skills, knowledge, and abilities to be able to do it. Because I have a guy right now who's going to make the best school resource officer.
Right.
He just recruited people to give funds to somebody, to a kid who had never been in sports, parents both work really hard, don't have the time to take him to and from, can't afford for him to be in there. He got them to sponsor him, got his uniforms
That's
paid for and
fantastic,
everything. And this kid is thriving.
Yeah.
You know, like he's the kind of guy that is just going to make such an impact.
Sure.
And like, this is how much I love them. And at the same time, people will look at me, and I'll even say in my course, I'll say, just because you can be the school resource officer doesn't mean you have to be. You
should be, yeah.
Right? If you want to go out and you want to get guns and drugs,
cool.
Just because you have a vagina does not mean you can't do it. Go do it. Like, I had this stop on Friday night, and in Jersey, we're all scared of weed, right?
Yeah.
We can't talk about it.
No.
If we smell it, we can't.
I don't even know what weed is.
I don't either. Is
Good.
that a thing?
Yes, you just mentioned the W word.
Maybe cops can smoke it. We're not really
Wait,
sure anymore.
I hope if you guys edit this, remove that word. That's a violation. She mentioned the word.
Vagina isn't, but
No,
weed
vagina's
is.
vagina's perfectly fine. It's an anatomy. That's fine. Weed, no bueno.
And man, you talk about, and I went to see Craig. He had his class here on last week. Well, I walked in, I'm like, I'm fired up. I'm ready. I was here for 2 hours watching his class, and I was like, oh my God, I love being a cop, right? I love calling out all those little intricacies that reach RAS, right?
Yeah.
I love calling people on their bullshit. I love catching someone in a lie. I love it. And maybe that's narcissistic of me, whatever. I don't care. It's a good kind of narcissistic, right? And so we're on this stop, man, and I'm with like kind of an officer who's been on a long time, but again, came up in the era where we were transitioning from the smell of weed giving us PC to search a car into COVID and having no cars on the road to even search, to now, like, you're not even allowed to talk about it. Like, you can, I didn't inhale kind of thing, right?
That's right.
So when we went up, and there were all these other things that led for me to ask for consent that weren't that, and he got to watch that happen and then move forward, and we pull 1.77 pounds of weed and a shit ton of other THC out of a car based off of oh my God, man. I was just like, guys are pumped. He's like,
We can
hell
do
yeah,
that. We
I'll
can
spend
actually
4
do
hours
this.
doing evidence. Let's do it, right?
Yeah.
And man, that's the greatest part of like just knowing, being secure in who I am as a cop,
Sure.
not just as a lieutenant. Like, I still love going out, and people are like, what are you stopping cars for? I'm like, because I fucking love stopping cars,
love
man.
it, yeah.
Like, I don't need to write tickets. I want to talk to people. You want to teach a cop how to talk to people, force them to go out and make motor vehicle stops.
Sure.
Not even just for tickets, just to get
Interactions.
comfortable with being uncomfortable. You have no idea how that person's going to relate to you.
Fact.
You have no idea what's going on with them. It's an opportunity in 5 minutes to have empathy towards people that may be doing something wrong and you caught, or it's an ability to talk through the bullshit, and maybe you fail. Maybe you miss something. Maybe an hour later you're like, shit, he was lying and I saw this, or she was being deceptive, I saw her do this movement. Now the next time you know to be better.
Yeah.
And it's having the guts and the audacity, I guess, to have confidence in yourself to make the stop you want to stop.
But how do you have confidence, though? It's when you know that that your actions, that two things. The discipline should be there. You know, I always talk about the dirty D word, and I'm like, no. Global study, workplace study that they did, I want to say, I believe the top 3 in the world as far as workplace environments from morale. I want to say, I believe the top 3 were in Japan, but they all had the highest levels of discipline on top of it. So everybody says discipline. Right. The highest levels of discipline also equal the highest levels of morale. Notice what I said. I'm not talking about consequential.
Right.
I'm saying a system, a set of beliefs that we abide by and that we hold what? A pride to accomplish. So what I'm saying is, how do you get the courage to go out there and do what you're doing? Is to know that if you swing and miss on some day, but you followed the rules. Now, listen, you might have tripped and scuffed your knee.
Yeah.
I mean, the rule books are, 7 inches thick. So you could break a rule by going to work, for Christ's sake. But what I'm saying is to have the confidence to know that, hey, listen, we look at mistakes of the head over mistakes of the heart, right? We understand the difference. There's nobody who's perfect here. I mean, in any industry, from doctors to nurses to teachers to lawyers, people break rules, right? They violate rules. They have their mishaps. That happens. I'm a firm believer in doing what? Let's educate, let's fix, let's correct, right? Let's grow. But the only way to do that, and again, that's why I laugh. We take military equipment all the time. We take military tactics. We take OD green clothing, but we don't take the system of values. And again, you want bold leadership. How do you get bold leadership, regardless of rank, is by giving them the courage and the faith that their actions will be supported.
Yeah.
Come if you swing and you hit a home run, or if you swing, you miss. But you did it for the right reasons. You did it. And if we can make you better, not a problem. Let's do it.
And that's who I try to be as a leader. I try to be transparent, because when we were out there Friday night, even I was nervous I was fucking up. Like that I was maybe infringing upon rights that I wasn't allowed to.
Sure.
Because all this weed thing is new, right? But I knew, I know based on my training experience that I can see things that this suspect is doing that lead me to believe that there was more going on in this vehicle
100%.
than just whatever. And even on the roadside with the patrolman that I was with, I was like, listen, we're going to do this. And I mean, I called Brad to help with a trap. I called Kenny because Brad didn't pick up. And then I called you because neither of them picked up. And then the next day I messaged Rob, right? And Rob's like the king right around us, right?
Yeah.
He's only a couple, Rob Ferrero, who is like right down the road. I was like, I was inspired to do this because of you, because I took your on-demand class and I watched, and I told Craig the same thing. And, I told him, I was like, I wasn't sure of myself, but I kept faith in myself that I knew that I was doing what I thought was right.
Yep.
And that I could articulate what I was seeing.
Yep.
Even if I couldn't do it roadside that minute, I knew that when I got back and I sat down, I'd be able to articulate that I got into that car for the right reasons to the prosecutor's office and be able to get the charges that I needed. And we got a 3rd-degree possession with intent to distribute, and 4th-degree possession, and then DWI while under the influence of narcotics.
But how much better does it feel, though, that you could do this because you're actually looking forward to going to work? And that's why I laugh all the time, right? So again, this is free.
Yeah.
So I talk about the 4 walls theory, right? Private industry influence, and I always use a certain establishment as my mantra, my metric for this. But you take care of what's happening within the 4 walls of your building with a certain, feeling, a certain mood, a certain culture, and it inspires those to then translate that and reciprocate that to the 4 corners of your district. So I say all the time, like we do it backwards. What do? We have our leaders, right? Our command staff, our chiefs, our sheriffs, whoever, that are standing up in front of podiums that are trying to appease the public, when in fact, is it really them dealing with the public? No, it's the line officers.
Yeah.
So if you do all that and it sounds sexy and it sounds sweet and it sounds so wonderful, but then you go back to the 4 walls of your building and it's a toxic environment within those 4 walls, what happens, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to get that. There is no system of belief. You're not going to be able to empathize with somebody struggling because you're struggling and you're getting treated like crap within the 4 walls of your building.
Right.
How are you supposed to empathize now with the motoring public? It's just not going to happen.
No.
Hurt people. So what I'm saying is, in the same way when it comes to morale, you see how easy it is for a culture shift where now people look forward to coming to work. If you want to staticize that, go ahead. The stats go through the roof when that happens. So if you're a stat king or queen, right, and that's what you're worried about, make the morale better, watch the stats go along with it.
Yeah.
And it's not by giving out cookies. I say it all the time. You can make it so wonderful as to all the benefits, it's proven. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Because now, and you're going to get out there now and see, I've been to places throughout this country where they make a fraction of what we make in certain areas of this country when you talk about salaries, but yet the right workplace environment, the men and women of those agencies will run through a wall.
Yep.
Why? They're getting treated a certain way.
Right.
Right or wrong.
Yeah.
And it's just so, I think it's all culture related. I'm very happy to hear that you're in that type of environment because you see it, you glow when that happens.
You do.
And everything else goes along with it.
And leaving your family and that guilt that you have sometimes and the things you're missing out on, it's easier.
Yep.
It just is. When you're miserable going to work and you have to go because you're out of sick time or you can't take off because you're at minimum, it makes it that much harder when you're miserable there to actually be there.
Yeah.
And then your head's not in it. And then you're not doing what you should be doing. And then you get in more trouble because you're getting written up because maybe your demeanor is not the right way. And when leaders start recognizing that, and I mean leaders because you have to have a leader that recognizes the fact that we can't sit here and teach our kids to treat others the way they want to be treated and then not treat our people that way too.
Yeah, imagine
we can't come in and yell at our people and expect them to go out and treat the public in a way that they deserve to be treated. And listen, I don't want to say deserve to be treated because there are definitely some people that we run into that deserve for us to treat them like assholes. We're not allowed to. It is just what it is. But you're going to get people treating people better if you treat them better.
But again, I think the cornerstone of that too is that self-respect, right? If you don't if you don't preach, I'm very critical where you remember that viral video of the officers in NYPD that were just getting abused, right? Water dumped on them.
Yeah.
Then it went to milk, then Chinese food on the windshields, right? And what you hear the command staff at the time commending those officers for walking away, doing everything like that. So what you're doing is you're preaching almost a culture of, we expect you to not respect yourself.
Yeah.
Right. So again, comes with that, the Pac-Man bites that you take away from that person as a human being. No good. And then what? When people don't respect themselves, where's the dignity? Where's the pride? So there's no way you can extend that to somebody else. I've made it a point now to visit some of the hot spots, right? So Minneapolis, Ferguson, Kenosha, to go to these hot spots. And New York and Philly are easy for me because of geographical location, but the hot spots, Chicago. And, I talk to people. So because me, I'm a blabbermouth, so it's easy for me. Hey, what's up? Hey, and you know what I find in some of these places that the media portrays hates us. What's funny? It's again like what I always say, right? It's us telling people what they need. So we're telling them they need teddy bear giveaways. We're telling them that they need ice cream cones. Instead of, what some of these people want? They're never going to have blue line flags outside, just like most people don't.
Right.
Doesn't mean they hate the police. You know what they're looking for? Some of them only have one thing. And it's their own dignity and respect. It's all they have. Their pockets are empty.
Yeah.
Their closets are empty. Their cupboards with their food maybe has crumbs.
Yeah.
But the one thing they have is that they just want to be respected as a human being. And if we don't you could preach all the tactics in the world. I can show you how to clear a corner. I can show you how to clear a car. I can show you how to find drugs. We do all that stuff. That's great. Show you how to handle a domestic. Wonderful. What is all that focusing upon? People. We act as if our clientele is an innate object.
Yeah.
They're people, but yet we don't focus on people.
And we can't please all of them.
Hell no.
And that's also the balance of it.
Yeah.
So who can you take care of directly all the time because you know that you have a direct connection to them and it's your people?
Your people. Yeah.
And then in turn, when they go out and have the direct connection with other people, they'll take care of them.
It's advanced physics, I'm telling you.
You definitely need a doctorate.
So call me doctor.
All right, Dr. Rizzo.
All right. Oh, that has a hell of a turn.
I really like it.
Yeah, it's a ring. I just want to be called that, commandant, and constable all in one sentence. That's just my dream. All right. So I want to hit you, off the cuff as we bring this to a wrap. I want to ask, so 2 questions. Tell me, what would the Heather now say to the Heather that started? That's question 1. And question 2 would be, how do you want to be remembered? So I always teach this in my class, right? I say a journey line is a West Point trick, right? I'm talking about the military academy. And you teach a journey line and you talk about the beginning now, and you talk about, ago. So whatever years ago, you're now. And in the end, and when end, I'm talking about END, the end of the game, your career, and the end of life. How do you want to be remembered? So 2 questions off the cuff. And I promise you, we didn't rehearse this, right? So what would the Heather now say to the Heather then? And how do you want to be remembered at the end, END, for both game and life?
Okay. So as far as the Heather of then, I would not give advice, which probably sounds weird.
Okay.
Because with that, I think that comes with me trying to think that there's something in my life that I regret. And I'm so proud of who I am right now that I feel like absolutely everything I've been through, has made me who I am.
Okay.
So I don't know if I'd give that person advice, but what I would say to them is no matter how hard your day seems, you will get through it. And that means you have 100% chance of success every day.
I like it.
And I would probably just say to not take yourself so seriously.
Okay.
That would probably be it.
Okay. I'll allow it.
Oh, well, I'm so glad.
So now give me your answer to the end.
Now it was the end of...
End of game?
Like career?
Yep. End of life. How you want to be remembered?
End of career, I just want to leave this place better than I started it. And I think I've already done that. So now my job is to just now push further. I want people to not feel like they're alone. I want people to love this job like I love this job. And that doesn't mean that they have to and that they will. I just want, if there's people that have the potential to, but that are turned off from it because of reasons, I want them to see that this is just a job and it will end.
Okay.
And you're going to divorce it at some point. It's going to be a divorce. Right?
Roger that.
So have a plan for after.
That's it.
Right? Because if you don't, someone's going to make one for you.
That's a fact.
So, and then end of life, it really comes down to family and friends and the people that I've had an opportunity to make an impact on. I want them to pay it forward. I want I want their interactions with me to be more positive than negative, and for them to take whatever I can give them to be better.
Yeah.
That's really it.
Okay. I dig it.
I'm probably going to change my answer like next week. And
Yes,
call you and be
you
like,
will.
hey, Tom, remember when I've changed my answer. We have to do another podcast.
You know what's good? No, but it's good to ask yourself those questions periodically, sporadically. It has nothing to do with being a cop. It could be for anything. And I preach that to people because of my own growth. And I say that, man, the days are long, but the years are short.
Yeah.
So I think something that we could all look back upon that you'd always want to say to your former self, and it's a good thing to always reflect upon this, is don't wish time away.
Yeah.
You know, in the military, they coined the statement, embrace the suck.
Yeah.
It's the art of getting better. But it's also...
Are you going to quote Al?
Well, no, I won't do that. Because, you know, I have a man crush on him too.
I know. I get it. He's amazing.
He's incredible.
We miss him. Come
Yeah.
back
Well,
to-
Heather's talking about my buddy and one of my mentors. He always says cops and convicts, the only two people that count time backwards. You know, you meet a police officer. Hi, I'm Tom. How are you? 4 years to go.
Yeah.
What are you in for? Policing. You know, it's like we're the only people that do that. It's like a prison sentence. Yet
I'll come back to the East Coast. We need you.
But yet we all put like blue line tattoos on our nipples. It's like, huh? Oh my God, I'm a cop. Why are you wishing it away? Because I'm a cop. You know, so
Yeah.
isn't that weird?
It's easier to commiserate, right?
I say though, I think, man, you know, you can't get it back. And if you don't know anything about trauma, I really believe that's going to be the next chapter for me. I think I'm going to start to focus on that. I've already flirted with writing another book, and
Don't flirt with it, just marry it.
yeah, I
I'm
think,
serious.
and I think I want to start instructing in this area of, we focus so much, as I said before, about I emphasized if God forbid, an officer involved shooting, a traumatic event of that type of stature is where we flood the halls with experts, right? I think trauma comes in all shapes and sizes. And I think the military has been screaming at us to get better at it when it comes to, I don't even consider it PTSD. I don't think it's a disorder. I think it's an injury.
Agreed.
And it comes from all sorts. Yeah, there's horrific things you might have experienced physically. There's experienced sights that you might have seen. But I think culture can cause trauma if you're in the wrong culture environment for too long.
Absolutely.
So I think that for me, one of the traumas that I have is actually physically not being able to remember some pivotal points in my life because I wish them away so expeditiously.
I get that on a whole level.
So that's why I say I think it's good to embrace moments now. And I try like hell. To literally to show you I practice what I preach. I do it on a daily. I text myself, and I'll text something that maybe wasn't great during the day, and then maybe a blessing that I have, because there's always both that happen during the day. And I started to see my life change exponentially when I did that. Another thing, the reason why I said the end is because an end is something that inevitably we can't avoid.
Right.
So you're going to have an end come to a career, a game, and you're going to have an end come to what? Your days here.
Yeah.
And I think if you were to act with that in mind as to what am I doing in terms of, and I'm not talking about what you leave behind, because that's, I think, a mistake too, right? These people, what does Denzel Washington always say? You can't bring an ATM with the hearse, right?
Yeah.
I'm saying that I think if we lived a certain way with always the cognizance of how do I want to, be remembered, it actually brings the two into alignment, and you start to act as if you'd want to be remembered. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's why I asked those questions. But so you passed my quiz. So
I'm so glad.
you'd be all right. Yeah. But this has been a pleasure.
Yeah.
I'll not only do this again because, like I said, I learn more from you than I tend to give out. But
That's not true.
I want, like
Again,
I said,
that's perspective.
Well, I'm telling, for anybody who's listening, this young lady sitting beside me is bold. She's audacious. She's inspirational. And I say this with respect. It's not going to sound like it, but if she can do it, so can anybody. Because she tried to come up with every excuse as to why she would be blocked. And we talk about a glass ceiling, and I don't say that because of gender. I think glass ceilings exist because of false perceptions. And my God, this girl sitting next to me, I think, blasted her head right through that ceiling. So if somebody as silly as me can be out there helping somebody, I don't care if you help one person, and then you have somebody like this young lady helping people, that means that you can in some perspective. So I always say, a lesson learned should be a lesson shared. So if you had one, go out there and share it. So that's it from me, man.
I can't finish with anything else after that.
So, all right, we out.
Guys, if you're in an area where you're trying to get to our classes, but we're not close to you, fret not. We actually have on-demand training at streetcop.com. You can take that course online right now, and then you could attend that training in the future at no additional cost. You can redeem your voucher, so you get 2 for the price of 1. We don't want to deny you the ability to take this training now, especially knowing that it can keep you safe at a very minimum, putting bad guys in jail where they belong, and at the maximum, going home to your family. Check out streetcop.com for that offer.